There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. But what if I told you that Africa has been going neither fast nor far because we've been trading with everyone except ourselves? And what if I told you that while the world has been playing economic chess, Africa has been playing checkers against itself? Imagine a family with a farm full of food and sending their kids to beg for scraps at the neighbor's house. That's what Africa does when we ship out raw materials only to buy them back as finished goods at times 10 the price. And more importantly, what would happen if the richest continent on earth started keeping its wealth at home? But before we dive deeper, I want to share something special with you, our family here on Africa Today. And yes, I am referring to you, my go-getters. Many of you have been reaching out, asking how we can move beyond just talking about African solutions to actually creating them together. Your messages, your passion, your belief in what we could do together, it's been overwhelming. And you know what? You were right. It's time we practice what we preach. That's why we are launching our first joint manufacturing venture, an African-owned, African-operated diaper manufacturing business. Think about it. Every single day, millions of African parents buy diapers. But where are those diapers made? Who profits from them? Where do those materials come from? And most importantly, where does the money go? Not anymore. Together with our community, with you, my go-getters, we are building a business that keeps African money in African hands. We are not just making diapers. We are making a statement that Africans can produce world-class products for Africans. That we can create jobs, build skills, and generate wealth that stays on our continent. And this is exactly what intra-African trade is all about. Not just consuming together, but building together. This small step we are taking together is part of a continent-wide movement that's reshaping Africa's economic future. So if this is something that appeals to you, please do well to reach out to us at africatodayinfo@gmail.com for details. So stay tuned, for pretty soon I am going to show you why Africa trading with itself isn't just good business. It's the only path to true independence. For decades now, Africa's economic story has been written by others. Our gold, diamond, cocoa, coffee leave our shores in raw form, heading to factories in Europe, China, and America. Consider this shocking fact. African countries trade more with the outside world than with each other. Only about 61% of African trade happens within the continent compared to 68% for Europe and 59% for Asia. But what if this isn't just an economic problem, but a design? Have you ever wondered why colonial railways in Africa mostly leads to ports rather than connecting to neighboring countries? When a global crisis hits, like when the US tariffs hit 28% in a single quarter, African exports collapsed. Why? Because we are dependent on markets we don't control. But here's what no one is talking about. When African countries trade with each other, 41.9% of those goods are manufactured products, not just raw materials. That's nearly 3 times higher than what we export to the rest of the world. Think about this. Rwanda and Tanzania used to just export raw coffee beans. Now they are packaging their own coffee, producing avocado oil, and selling finished products to Ghana and across the continent. So what happens when we keep that value on our own soil, in our own pockets, in our own economy? Jobs, innovations, independence. But there are powerful forces that don't want this to happen, and I will tell you why in a moment. Now, some economists will tell you Africa should stick to what it does best, producing raw materials, its comparative advantage. Others say African countries produce similar goods. What would they even trade with each other? And the skeptics point out the infrastructure isn't there. Roads are poor, regulations are complex, borders are difficult to cross. These aren't ridiculous concerns, they are real challenges. But what if I told you they are not obstacles but opportunities? What if the biggest opportunity in global economics isn't in Silicon Valley nor Wall Street, but in the untapped potential of intra-African trade? And what if I showed you it's already starting to happen? This is where the African Continental Free Trade Area comes in, converting a market of 1.2 billion people and a $3 trillion economy. But here's what makes it revolutionary. It's not just removing tariffs. It's building something Africa has never had before, a single unified market. Let me break down what this actually means for regular people. When South African refrigerators can be sold in Kenya without massive taxes, and when the Nigerian textile can reach Ethiopia without paperwork nightmare, or when the Ghanaian chocolate makers can source cocoa from Côte d'Ivoire and sell finished products across the continent, that's when real transformation begins. But what would this actually look like in practice? Rwanda used to be known for only 3 things: coffee, tea, and tin, making up to 80% of its exports. A classic case of colonial era independence. But Rwanda did something remarkable. They identified 100 new products they could make and trade, focusing on things that weren't perishable, didn't need much land, and weren't too complex. Now they export packaged coffee, tea, avocado oil, honey, textile, crafts, leather goods, and beauty products, not just to Europe, but to Ghana and other African countries. And here's the game changer that nobody is talking about. Rwanda sells to Ghana. Those products aren't competing with German engineering or Japanese electronics. They are competing in markets where they can actually win. Meanwhile, Tanzania is transforming its agricultural sector. Instead of shipping out raw coffee, they are selling finished products to Algeria. Do you see what's happening here? Value that used to leave the continent is now staying in Africa. And jobs that used to be in European factories are now in African communities. But what if I told you that this is just the beginning? What if the biggest economic opportunity of the 21st century isn't just in Africa, but in Africans trading with each other? Let's be clear about what's at stake here. Africa spends $35 billion annually importing food, despite having 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. As of now, we export cocoa beans for $6 per kilogram, only to import chocolate at a minimum of $20 per kilogram. We ship out unprocessed cotton and buy back t-shirts for times 10 the price. This isn't just bad economics. This is economic colonialism. But what if Africa could feed itself, clothe itself, and build for itself? What happens when a continent of 1.2 billion people begins to trade with itself instead of just exporting to others? Imagine a continent where value chains connect. Burkina Faso cotton becoming Nigerian fabric, becoming Ghanaian fashion, creating jobs and prosperity at every stage. Can you see it? Because it's already beginning to happen. The African Free Continental Trade Area could boost intra-African trade by at least 52% by just removing tariffs. If non-tariff barriers are also addressed, that number could double. This isn't just economics. It's about dignity, independence, and self-determination. What happens when Africa stops being just a supplier of raw materials, but a maker of finished goods, a creator of value, a trader among equals? Everything changes. Look, I'm not saying this is easy. The challenges are real. Poor infrastructure means it's often cheaper to ship goods from Lagos to London than from Lagos to, for instance, Lusaka. I'm also aware of the fact that complex regulations and custom procedures could keep trucks waiting for days. And powerful international interests benefit from keeping Africa as a source of cheap raw material rather than a competitor in manufacturing. But here's what's already working. One-step border posts are cutting crossing time from days to hours. Regional trade corridors are connecting markets and people. Digital platforms are helping small businesses find clients across borders. What if these aren't just policy changes, but the beginning of an economic revolution? And what if there was something you could do about it? Here's why this matters to you. Whether you live in Africa or not, if you are African, this isn't just about economics. It's about your future, the jobs, the opportunities, and prosperity that comes from trading with ourselves. If you're in the diaspora, this is about investing in a continent that is finally building for itself, not just supplying others. And if you're watching from elsewhere, this is about witnessing the birth of the next great economic powerhouse, a united African market. So here are 3 things you can do right now. Look at products you use daily. Can you replace one imported product with a product made from Africa? Small choices create big changes. If you are in business, explore opportunities in intra-African trade. And I can assure you that the pioneers will reap the greatest reward. And the third thing you should absolutely do is to share this video. For knowledge is the first step to transformation. What would happen if we decided that Africa's wealth should circulate within Africa before leaving its shores? Remember that African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. For too long, Africa has done neither. We've been going slowly and we've been going alone. Each country connected more to its former colonizers than to its neighbors. But a new story is being written. In Rwanda and Tanzania, in Nigeria, Cameroon, and South Africa, across the continent, Africans are beginning to trade with each other, build with each other, grow with each other. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And the journey to African prosperity begins with Africans trading with each other. The question isn't if Africa must trade with itself. The question is, what kind of Africa do we want to build when we do? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What product from another African country would you like to see in your local markets? And until next time, remember, Africa's wealth belongs in African hands.